Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the stream. I hope everybody's well. I know I've got at least one person who's feeling a bit sick tonight, unfortunately. So get well soon, is what I will say. Yeah, last stream kind of went a bit fuckery because week before last I ended up getting COVID from work. And yeah, I did not react terribly well. It's not the worst. I had it once before, and it was not. It was worse then. But yeah, it knocked me off my feet somewhat for a good few days, and I'm still not 100%, to be honest with you. I've still got very low energy, and yeah, it can linger a bit. It's a little bit shit. Plus, I've been having to work hard and all that kind of stuff. But you know, poor me. isn't that how it is? But I've got a holiday in a couple of weeks' time, so a week next Thursday I will be popping back to see another Gazman and spending a week up there, and we're going to Alton Towers, which will be nice. So got some stuff to look forward to, which is good. And my God, do I ever need a fucking holiday right now. Yikes, I hope you're better. Yeah, by and large, yeah. Like I say, I'm still a bit wiped. That's the thing. It can linger a little bit, this stuff. I'm testing negative now, so that's the good thing. And just had a busy week as well, which has probably not helped. But I get a day off, all I want to do is friggin' sleep. Maybe it's just me getting old. I don't know. But that's how it is. Hello, Kieran, John, Blue Iris. Welcome. I'm going to go ahead and assume my brother's watching. I'm hoping he's watching. I'm sure he'll be there somewhere. If not, he'll catch it on a later point. But we'll see. What's a holiday? I have, I barely remember myself. My year tends to go at the moment, this last 2 years has been basically January you start immediately with shows, then you get a couple of weeks, then there's assessments, a couple more weeks there's more assessments, a couple more weeks there's like a show, and it goes right through till like June, and then we go into maintenance, and that's the only time I get to have my holidays. June, July, August, basically, is when I get to take my holiday. And then as soon as we get into September, work starts in earnest again. But I am kind of hoping to get home for mine and my brother's birthday. I'm going to try and make an effort for that. So as soon as the financial year's up, I will be booking a week away up to my brother's, and yeah, that's not that far away either. For those who are unaware, it will be our 50th birthday. So half a century of excellence. So I think I deserve that one off. I think that will be good. He's lurking. Hello, Gary. I am really looking forward to coming up and seeing you, man. I'm ready for getting out of Cambridge for a little while, just a few days. Like I said, we're going to Alton Towers, which will be fun. So see if I can still hack the roller coasters in my advanced years. It's been a few years since I've been up there, so I'm kind of super excited for that. Should be good. Hopefully we'll get some nice weather, and hopefully it'll be fairly quiet. Yeah, just I suppose I'll go for a few of the pickups just recently. Some of you worked out what the film was from the photo that I put on Facebook, but Once Upon a Time in the West, and I'll be bringing these up to my brother if he wants to have a watch. It's a really long film. It's about 2 hours 40 minutes or something like that. My God, the soundtrack on this thing is frigging amazing. I haven't really been what I could never describe myself as a Westerns fan previous to this, but I just started picking up some Sergio Leone, and I'll get up some Sam Peckinpah at some point. But good God, that I saw a clip of it, and I can't remember which I can't remember which critic it was. They were showing a little bit of various films. Oh, it might have been George Rockwell Smith, and he showed a little clip of it. And I kind of went, that soundtrack's amazing, and I actually kind of watched this on the strength of the soundtrack. Frigging hell, it's really long. Didn't know Once Upon a Time in the West was a 15, thought it was a 12. I think it might be because it's got two versions on here. It's got the original theatrical and the I'm not sure what the difference is. I think the theatrical version is shorter than the version that I watched. So there I think there's some extra stuff. I think it solidly deserves the 15. It's frigging violent in places. It's not, as explicit as some films. Certainly not as explicit as some of the films that, we watch through this channel and stuff. But yeah, it's got a lot going on. But my God, you've got to be kind of ready for it's a bit of a marathon, but it takes its time with the characters and just some amazing cinematography in this, and yeah, it's quite something. Yeah, Charles Bronson in it is fantastic. It's like the opening sequence is like real kind of slow build up, and the whole film is incredibly slow, really. For what most people were kind of expecting from a western, and I think it got a little bit of a hard time when it first got released because of how slow it is. And the version that I watched, I think, is even slower. I think it's like one of the fullest versions of it, and it's. But it really kind of just spends its time kind of building up the tension of what's going on. And the characterization and the character arcs within it are really fascinating as well. But like I say, you've got to be kind of patient with it. It takes its sweet time. So I also got that. I just picked that up, which has... I'm always leery about these bloody slipcases. They take up room. It annoys me a little bit. But Good, the Bad and the Ugly for a few dollars more, and a fistful of dollars. So I'll bring these up to my brother, see if he wants to watch them. I think it will be quite good. Eastwood turned down the Bronson role. I love Clint, but Bronson is fantastic in it. Yes, he is. My God, is he chilling. It's I was about to say, wasn't it? The opening scene, right? I mean, this is how it's kind of framed, right? You've got these guys who sort of they basically take over this station, and they're waiting for something. You don't know what it is, and the mailman throws the mail out the train when it gets there, and they're like kind of like, oh, well, that's not what we're after. And you sort of kind of going, well, what could they be after? And the train pulls away, and it's just Charles Bronson stood there behind the train as it pulls away, and he's playing his harmonica, and that fucking harmonica sound in the soundtrack is whew. It's just perfect. It's just it sounds kind of ethereal because it's clearly not coming from him, within the construct of the film. So it is very much part of the soundtrack, but it's sorry, banging the mic. It's part of the soundtrack, but it's also kind of like part of his character, and this whole world is kind of like around his. So you got these three guys that are waiting for him, and obviously like, oh, there's the fucker kind of thing. And they have a standoff, and he's like kind of, he's like kind of like, oh, we didn't bring a horse for you. And Charles Bronson just looks at him and goes, you bought too many. Fucking ice cold. I don't know why Clint Eastwood wouldn't have gone for it, but Charles Bronson, like John says, is incredible in it. It is without a doubt the best role I have seen him in. As much as I kind of enjoy Death Wish, his character in that is nowhere near as chilling and or sets as much of an impression as the character does in Once Upon a Time in the West. But like I say, I've got these three to have a watch of as well. So I'm kind of particular because, like I say, I haven't really sort of been into westerns, but I'm sort of starting to get into the kind of like spaghetti westerns and that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to make a good start with it. Fistful of Traveller's Checks, yes. You could probably sell the slipcases on eBay. I don't know. I guess you could. You can pretty much sell anything on eBay, can't you? I guess. Yeah, I always. It's like with the Marvel ones. They always came with the slipcases, but it's like, you know, by the time you've got like 5 or 6 DVDs, those cases take up the space of, you know, one DVD. It's like, yeah, I don't really want to kind of increase the size of my collection, or at least the space that it takes up, by 20%. You know, it's like ridiculous. I actually prefer spaghetti westerns to the more classic westerns, though I do like Peckinpah's westerns. Peckinpah's one that I've really kind of got to, his filmography in general is one that I really want to explore, because I've enjoyed what I have seen, you know, particularly Straw Dogs. So I'm kind of interested to see some of the other stuff, and expand my kind of films that I kind of watch and stuff like that. One western that I did watch, and it's kind of partly what sort of spurred me towards giving westerns a bit more of a chance, was Shane, which is an interesting film. It's an interesting piece of characterization, and certainly kind of like, you know, an examination of the role of violence in the making of America. Is kind of partly about that. You know, these characters who have to, you know, have renounced violence, but then have to take back up violence. It's a wonder, you know, if I was to watch it again, I'd be a bit more keyed into maybe the kind of morality of that kind of stuff. But westerns did a whole bunch of things, and the spaghetti westerns were certainly kind of, from what I've seen of them, very heavily into the role of violence in the building of America. Although, you know, you can argue how historically accurate it was, but God, they really, some of them, particularly the spaghetti westerns, really kind of go for the warts and all kind of thing, as opposed to a lot of the more sanitized versions of that stuff in America, from American studios. You know, although the Once Upon a Time in the West is partly an American production. Favourite Bronson role is Hard Times, Walter Hill's amazing movie. Massive fan of Peckinpah, as you know. Yeah. I mean, John and I really ought to do a proper kind of like podcast type thing. I've been meaning to kind of push him on whether he'd want to do something like that, because that would be kind of cool. I make no secret of it. I'm really struggling to produce kind of like edited videos and stuff like that at the moment. Time and energy has been a real problem, but I enjoy doing this kind of stuff. So having those kind of conversations, a la Lost in the Static and Videodrome, harking back to those kind of days, they were fun to do, and it'd be interesting to see if I could actually kind of pull off doing anything quite like that, because for all the faults that people say about Josh Hadley, he really does know how to kind of pull a show together and make it entertaining. He's an incredible compere for all of this sort of stuff, and a very hard guy to bullshit. He's prone to his own bullshit, though. Bless him. I do love that guy. He is one of my good best friends on the internet. Guy I've got a lot of respect for, despite the fact that a lot of people don't. I actually gave up, you know, a few gigs because of how he was treated by some people. So that's how much I give a shit about him. Wild Bunch wasn't the first that used them, but it really popularized blood squibs. I don't know if it was the first, but that's the thing, isn't it? The spaghetti western, the Italian western movies very much more kind of into showing everything, some of the worst stuff. And it got him into a lot of trouble in some respects. A lot of people looked at it and kind of, particularly in America, because it doesn't sanitize the violence. What's the beer of choice? I haven't started it yet, but I've got this. There you go. Inveralmond EPA, Edinburgh Pale Ale. I've never tried it before. Just picked it up from a co-op just yesterday. So let's give it a try. That's quite nice. It's very light. Yeah, that's very good. I'll definitely be getting some more of that as long as you've got them in there. Blood squibs existed since the mid to late 50s, but were rarely shown, even and carefully used due to censorship fears over violence. Yes, violence on the screen. Isn't it funny, that America, in particular, you can say the same things about, British history and pretty much any country's history. But with America, it's so driven by kind of like, its history's been driven by violence of one kind or another from its inception. It's baked, it baked into its culture. Its history is very, very much stained with a lot of blood and a lot of guns. And I won't go too political on the current situations, but when it comes out into movies and stuff like that, and they go, "Oh, it's terrible! You shouldn't be showing that kind of stuff," and it's arguable that things like the spaghetti westerns really kind of were a much more mature approach to the subject matter of the days of the Wild West, the frontier days. Yes, it's kind of probably blown up and sexed up and all that kind of stuff, but it's kind of fascinating that that the authorities are like, you can't show this, it's evil. You go, no, that's kind of where you came from. But you get the same with war movies and stuff like that. The idea that war would be a particularly violent thing and a horrible way to go and a miserable experience to go through was very much kind of suppressed through censorship and all that kind of stuff. In a lot of countries, in this country, it was not the done thing to show too many people dying. And when you did get a real kind of something that was a bit more real about how the experience of what the experience of war is, that the censors would get very outraged and the audiences would be shocked and say that you can't do this because it discourages people from volunteering to go to war and stuff like that. You go, yeah. It's war is a brutal and ugly thing, so I think showing it through stories is kind of an important thing. Did ever heard of Binix? So I don't know how to pronounce that, Kieran, but yeah. Hey, all, can't stay. Sadly, Lexi isn't great, so if all goes well, I'll make the next one. Okay. Hope Lexi gets well, and you take care and try not to have too bad a time. Hello, Collector Adam. So what else did I get? Obviously, I'd shown you that the other day, and as far as I know, there's still no Blu-ray, British Blu-ray of this. This is, I can't remember what it is. I think it's a Spanish edition. So I'm taking that up to my brother because he hasn't seen it, but I also picked up the album, which is quite a nice little package, actually. I can't say I'm the biggest Pink Floyd fan in the world when it comes to all of the stuff. I find it a little bit... a lot of the albums take a fuck ton of commitment to sit through, put it that way. But there's two CDs in there, so it's like a two-part album. And a book with some of Gerald Scarf's artwork and stuff in there. Although, I would rather... This is one of those times where you sort of go, it'd be nice if I had the vinyl version with all that kind of stuff in. But I'll take that up for my brother to have a listen as well. But it is such a good album. It really is. And a hell of a film. And also, I got Willy's Wonderland just recently as well. I haven't watched it yet. I think I'm going to save it till I come up to my brother's place, and we'll sit down and experience this for the first time together. Might be a nice antidote to The Wall. The Wall was a very hard film to follow up, I think. Some people did make some suggestions of films that would kind of go well after it, but I'm not entirely sure I agree. The Wall's a very powerful film. I think it gets a little lost in itself towards the end. I think the point of it sort of kind of wanders a little bit. It's not quite as cohesive as maybe it might be, but it's powerful enough and interesting enough to be able to survive that. Hello, Byron. So yeah, it's just a few of the pickups. Hello, Adam. You'll really be suffering this week. First time, hopefully last time I have a coat. I hope you're not feeling too bad. I was just saying earlier, it's pretty fucking wretched. Even what is considered a mild dose of it, and I would say that both times I've had it, I've had a relatively minor dose. It is still deeply unpleasant. I woke up on the Saturday night sweating so hard it was like I just stepped out of the friggin' shower. I'm not exaggerating. My fingers had pruned up because I was like, what the hell? Okay. So yeah, when you're sweating hard enough for your fingertips to prune up, you know you've lost quite a bit of fluid. So just make sure you're getting lots of water in you, a bit of paracetamol, all that kind of stuff, and just rest up as best you can. And I'm sure you will be fine. Willy's Wonderland and Banana Splits double bill. Banana Splits is still... Oh my god, if I watched it now, I'd be kind of like wondering what the fuck I must have been thinking when I was a kid. I do remember watching that on TV as a kid. It is... it's like a drug-induced hallucination, as far as I remember. It would be an interesting one to revisit. There's certain things that I would not go back to. I have season 1 of the A-Team up there. And I think I watched about half of the first episode, and then I just kind of went, I can't watch this again. I don't want to ruin my happy memories of it, if you know what I mean. I enjoyed it as a kid, and I think watching it now is it's just a recipe for completely ruining it for me. So yeah. Rob Zombie is a big Banana Splits fan. Really? Okay. Well, actually, you know what? That doesn't surprise me entirely. For all the criticism I would fire at Rob Zombie in so many respects, he has an interesting kind of visual style. And I can see kind of, bits of the Banana Splits in there. Dude with the Shades had I Ate Your Shit, Grim. Okay. Oh, you mean on yeah, I know the one you mean. But yeah. We do have potentially a film tonight if you want to watch it. It is Devil's Wedding Night. So we can have a watch of that in a bit if you like. If you are up for it, give us a thumbs up or something like that, or just kind of like go, yeah. The link is in the description, so avail yourself of that and set yourselves up, and we'll look at maybe watching that if you guys are up for it. Next Friday I will do another stream. Should be no problem next Friday, I don't think. But basically, what I will do is the long promised run through the Jess Franco DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff like that I've got, which should be kind of fun. You got a year there, so yeah, I think we're. I suspect everybody wants a movie. That's fine. We will do the movie. This thing now, I mean, I am kind of looking forward to seeing it. It's just Nick Cage has become an increasingly fascinating actor, and I know Simon hates the guy, but there's things I hate him in, but I think there's also a lot of stuff which I find him to be quite a fascinating person in. When you get films like Mandy and things like that, or The Colour Out of Space, and Pig. Pig was a fascinating one for me. See him in a role so understated as he is in that, and that was kind of cool. And it just actually shows that he is very capable of being a really good serious actor, as well as one who is kind of like prone to doing the really kind of crazy sort of Cage. Wild at heart. Yeah, he's kind of he's pushing at least about 95% Cage in Wild at Heart. There's point to that, which is, you know, he's really kind of like out there and stuff like that in that film, but it kind of demands it. I'm going to have to watch it again because I haven't watched it in a long time, but I do have it up there somewhere. That would definitely be... Have I got it? I think that might be one of the... Oh, no, yeah, there it is. It's right, yeah, I do have it. It was one of the later ones for me to get, although I've only got it on DVD. I might have to get it on Blu-ray at some point. I think it'd be worthwhile on Blu-ray. Although my Blu-ray software is kind of like, it won't install or won't run properly. So I have to run through my PS3, which is fine, I guess. PS3 really is a noisy running device, though, isn't it? Oh dear. Yeah. Very varied career that guy has had. And he's finally getting back to doing interesting stuff. Interesting projects this last, 6 years or whatever. Loved Nick Cage in Bringing Out the Dead. Yeah. That's the thing. He's done such a wide range of stuff. He did what I think one of the more cringe ones was probably Left Behind. But I can't really watch him in stuff like Face Off. I'm not a fan of Con Air, which is, kind of sacrilege to some people. But I'm so in the position that I hate Michael Bay's work so much that I'm just not interested in kind of watching those kind of films anymore. Face Off is just like kind of weird to me. I mean, I know that's not Bay, but just there's something about it, something about the qualities of it, which just feel a little bit odd, too odd to me. I don't like the way those films are put together. Isn't Left Behind a Christian movie? Yes, it is. It originally had was it Kirk Cameron? I think it was Kirk Cameron in the original, and that was a stupidly low budget one that the filmmakers got into trouble with the people who wrote the book because they were told it was going to be a high budget film. Then they remade it later on with Nick Cage as a pilot. If Michael Bay was such a bad filmmaker, why was he handpicked by Spielberg? Spielberg's not always right. is one thing I would say. However, there are qualities to Michael Bay's work which are impressive. It's just, I find him to be a guy with an incredibly narrow palette for telling stories, and he's one of those guys that characterization is secondary to explosions, which is why I don't like the guy. I think he's been quite damaging to cinema in general, personally. So that's kind of why. Don't know, always like The Rock. Shame that Bay never focused on the more 15 rated content. The Rock is moderately enjoyable. I have no desire to watch it again, but I have enjoyed it in the past. I think when I watch it now, I just see too much of Bay as a director. You could argue that he's an auteur in that respect. But Bay is very much, he is one of those guys who came up through the music video kind of route. So you can see that kind of aesthetic and stuff like that within it. I'm not a big fan of the fact that he doesn't seem to be able to keep the camera still for 2 seconds. Framing is often seems secondary to camera movement to me with him. And there is a side effect to that, is it makes the world feel quite big and expansive and less like a... although, to some degree, it feels like there's no film crew around, if you know what I mean. So it's kind of almost sort of an immersive thing, but it's also like being on a bloody roller coaster all the time, which I find it a little... I find it incredibly tiring. There you go. Yes, Kirk Cameron was in the original Left Behind. Yes. Dear Kirk Cameron. Kirk Cameron and Ray Comfort. What a duo. I love a lot of the stories about kind of Kirk Cameron's time on the TV series, Growing Pains or something like that. And most of the cast are like, he just turned into a prick and we didn't want to work with him anymore. Boris has never seen a Michael Bay film, not even The Rock, but I'm a fan of him because he uses his money to rescue abused dogs. I'm not saying that Michael Bay's a bad guy personally, in kind of like, I don't know. There have been some stories of quite sleazy behaviour on his behalf, and I don't know how true it is, but there was the story that when Megan Fox auditioned for the role in Transformers, she was basically asked to do a sexy washing of Michael Bay's car, which is a little bit... Karen Smith says, behold, the atheist nightmare, which is the banana. Ray Comfort, Banana Man. Of all of those guys, actually, there is something about Ray Comfort that I quite enjoy. He's a Kiwi for one thing, so everything he says does not sound like he's serious about anything, which is kind of funny. he's not as nasty as the Ken Hams of the world, but there you go. But yeah, oh dear. Very upset at Color Outer Space, but not surprised. Not surprised. There's quality movie Lovecraft's a few and far between. I don't know. I mean, Color Outer Space is a bit of a weird one. I think Lovecraftian stuff tends to be kind of a little bit slow, almost incomprehensible. And I think the Color Outer Space is very much like that. I think it's particularly the Color Outer Space. There's things about it when it comes to how that story is told, which is very difficult, if not impossible, to do in a visual style. The whole idea of the Color Outer Space is it's something which is the actual colour. This thing is that it's almost indescribable by human standards. It's very, very almost abstract kind of thing that people can't quite describe what it is, and that's very difficult to do in film form. But yeah, I was getting back into watching Crazy Pastor's Greg Locke's in the same one from Tennessee. I think he's on cocaine or something. Oh dear. Yeah. Yeah, I know that, Byron. Oh dear. Oh, what's the one that's particularly bad now? Matt Powell, who's shacked up with Kent Hovind in his little compound. That can't end in any other way than good, I'm sure. Carpenter nailed Lovecraft in The Mouth of Madness. Great Lovecraft-inspired movie. Yeah, it's an interesting one. That one. A lot of people really hated it. I didn't hate it. I think it there's something a little off about it, but by and large, a pretty decent film. Actually, it seems to be quite difficult to get hold of at the moment as well. You can get it on digital, but I don't think there's any current release of it. Excuse me. Heard of Matt Powell. Wasn't he also associated with Steven Anderson? I don't know about that. Matt Powell is a particularly nasty piece of work, in my opinion. Yeah, it's rare that I kind of like go, that person is absolutely lying. Because I don't like the idea of sort of going, I know what that person's thinking and feeling. Him, I'd make an exception for. I think he is literally that cynical, but he's a nasty piece of work, and probably perfectly aligned when it comes to the likes of Kent Hovind. Oh dear. I make no apology for kind of like feeling the way I do and speaking the way I do about some of these people. Like the Ray Comforts of the world seem, the guy's a bit of an idiot, but he seems to be kind of personable to an extent. Kent Hovind and Matt Powell particularly are not nice people. Not nice people, and they set a very bad example. Yeah. I think Logic has done a few bits on him. There's been a few guys who have really kind of sort of gone on about him. There's another one called Christ Righteous, who's also a bit of a divvy little bugger. Releases a book and it's like 90% plagiarism. It's like, well done. Oh God, is he like one of those Westboro guys? Because they were pleasant as well, weren't they? Dear oh dear. Well, we should probably change the subject. Yeah. If you guys are kind of like all sort of queued up, we'll start watching this film. Now, the film, The Devil's Wedding Night, is Luigi Badzelli directed, although Joe D'Amato is also credited on IMDb, so I do kind of wonder what the balance is on that one. So I think, yeah, we will get cracking with that in just a couple of minutes. It is fucking hot in here tonight. It's like 26 degrees in here for some reason. I didn't think it was that warm tonight, but apparently it is, which is great. So I'm going to be nice and sweaty by the end of this. And so, yeah, it's a German release by Shout Factory Blu-ray, Mouth of Madness, but expensive. Have Sam Neill in his cell framed in my dining room. Yes, there is a film. So I said earlier, if everybody wants to watch the film, we don't have to. We can sit and talk. Only one person responded, so I took that as the consensus. I don't mind either way. Wow, he sounds like a really nice fella, Kieran. Some of these interesting people, aren't they? Okay. Yeah, I think I have to drink the beer quite fast tonight because it's going to get quite warm in here. So I'm working tomorrow night, which is like kind of a bit dull, but yeah. But we have at least got a kind of external show in at work, which is something. It shouldn't be too bad. I think we'll get it out within an hour of the show going down. Then I can come home, have a glass of wine, crash out for a day, and then back to work on Monday. Yay! Lovecraft is typically done best when it's inspired by rather than a specific story. Yeah, I think that's probably true, because I think Lovecraft stuff is very... it's very prosy, if you know what I mean, I guess. It's very wordy. There's kind of images which are sort of evoked within Lovecraftian horror in the written form. That is very difficult, if not impossible, to kind of present in a film. But, yeah. Lovecraft influenced Doom's aesthetics. Gotta love it. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of that kind of stuff, but oh, don't worry about the. I mean, just kind of like out. Yeah. That's fine, Pete. I don't know how to do the thumbs up on the thing either, so I'm just as bad. Right. So if everybody just sort of just goes, yeah, I'm ready, and then we'll get started with the film. It's an hour and 24 minutes, so it's not too long. It should be fairly breezy. I don't know how good this is. I believe it was Kieran suggested it, if I remember right. Which is ironic, really, because he really doesn't like Luigi Batzella. But it looks like a reasonable version, and it is in English, despite the titling. Happy. I agree. I'm a huge Lovecraft fan. For Dan O'Bannon's The Resurrected is pretty good, kind of like Stu Gordon's Dagon. Don't know about that. We don't know that one. Oh dear. It's a wide breadth of subjects we just breeze through anyway, isn't it? H.P. Lovecraft to the shitty evangelists. Have you got the link? So we're watching the same one. Yes, link is in the description below. I can put it in. I can probably grab that and put it in there. Oh, hang on. Excuse me. I'm just going to see, because I lifted it from the Facebook. So I'm just going to test it. It should work. Yeah, it just redirects you in. It's fine. Yeah, it's the one that's linked. It says Facebook on it. Okay. Suggested that since it's Batzella's best work, those qualities have nothing to do with him, but rather the guy behind the camera. See, the thing is, like I say, Joe D'Amato seems to be credited as a director on this as well. So I don't know what the relationship was there, whether Batzella didn't complete the movie and Joe D'Amato came in, or vice versa. That's the thing with a lot of the Italian movies. They really did sort of bounce between films quite often. So, to let me know though, Iris, can just let me know when you've managed to log on to when you followed that link, and so I've got a good idea that people are kind of ready. Feels a bit kind of gloopy tonight in terms of getting this sort of thing together, but hey, it's hot and sweaty in here tonight, so and my brain seems to be in another place. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Put it down to COVID brain. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Batzella directed most of it. D'Amato was his cinematographer. Film's actor, producer Mark Damon was more impressed with D'Amato and let him direct some extra scenes. Ah, okay. Matt Damon. So I bet I'm the first person to make that joke. Okay, I'm going to assume we're going to go 2 more minutes and then we will get started. Yeah. I'm not getting a massively clear response from you guys, but that's okay. But got to kind of move things along and get things started. So I'll do that. Yep. And it might just be me watching this movie. I've got no idea. This had better be good, Kieran. Dear, oh dear. Yeah, it's got some competition recently because I have been watching some good films. I don't think it's going to be quite Once Upon a Time in the West good. But yeah, God, that was a long film though. It's one of those you sort of sit down and you kind of go, yeah, okay, it's going to be alright. It'll be a couple of hours. It's like you sort of going, oh fuck, where's the evening going? Before you know, it's like 1 a.m. and it's only just finishing. Don't mind the movie, but I'm fine with talking too. Yep, all good. We got enough people sort of who want to watch, but we'll be talking for an hour anyway. Probably not even just about the movie itself. Working, so I can't pay much attention to the film now. Okay. Matt Damon. Didn't he do an advert recently, Matt Damon, where he was basically going, oh, if you're not into crypto, you're some kind of fucking idiot kind of thing. You know, calling people pussies for not getting involved in crypto. It's like, Jesus Christ. I wonder how much he could afford to lose on all that stuff. It's called The Devil's Wedding Night, but the link takes you to it's kind of, I guess, Italian. Title on it, O Castello de Dracula, aka El Plenilunio delle Vergini. So butcher that, whatever the fuck. But yeah, English language title for it's The Devil's Wedding Night. And I have no idea what we're in for. We are completely at Kieran's mercy on this one. Not to throw you under the bridge, like, but or under the bus. It's much better than The Beast in Heat. I'll give it that. Good. At least the Beast in Heat you can at least point at and laugh. Same with SS Experiment Co. To be honest, The Beast in Heat, I'm surprised has not been allowed a certificate, because quite frankly it's so fucking ridiculous that how anybody could take that seriously in the slightest. I've got no idea. It's Portuguese, okay, but if it's in English, yes it is. I don't know any Portuguese whatsoever, so if I had made that obvious. I'm not as multilingual as you, Kieran. It's actually kind of impressive. I did, just hearing him speaking French. Beast in Heat sounds like a documentary about how I was conceived. I would hope it wasn't, though. Because if you've ever seen that movie, it's quite something. It's quite something to behold. It's a little bit of a guilty pleasure, but it's also it borders on being kind almost intolerably tedious at points as well. If it had just concentrated on the whole kind of like, the Beast sort of end of things and ignored all the rest of this stuff, because essentially that film is made up of 2 different stories that were kind of lumped together, including with footage from another movie. So it's a real kind of ironically a Frankenstein's monster of a movie is The Beast in Heat. It doesn't quite make any sense. I only speak 2 languages, have some friends speak upwards of 4 or 5. It's still impressive enough to me. But 4 or 5 languages is quite incredibly impressive. I wish I'd taken time when I was a bit younger. It's harder for it to sink in when you're a bit older, generally speaking. Plus, I wouldn't really have much opportunity to use it around here. But there you go. All right, guys, we're going to start the movie then. So, if you've followed the link and you're on the right page, we'll start at 000, and we'll go on to count 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Now that's a very 70s title card. Some interesting shots to start with, I'll give it that much. There is something about Batzella's, what I've seen of his work. It has this very kind of distinctive colour palette. It's almost desaturated, but or at least kind of, it's like the colour palette's kind of squished down a bit. It's not entirely unique to Batzella, but I've noticed it a lot with his films. Beast in Heat is literally 3 movies. The Nazi stuff shot in 1977, partisan crap from a previous Batzella movie, and grainy footage from a Yugoslav movie from the late 60s during the battle scenes. I knew there was like 2 or 3, at least 2 stories in there, but yeah, it's a real hodgepodge. You definitely get the feeling with that particular. This music is very familiar. They used that in The Beast in Heat, didn't they? Yeah, it's very much a hodgepodge. It's one of those Euro exploitation films where it was probably just like we just got to kick out a movie this month for tax reasons. I've not seen this before either, Iris. Okay. You know what? I mean, it's a thing with the Nazi exploitation films. A lot of them, SS Experiment Camp, The Beast in Heat, and a couple of the others, they sort of blend into each other. It's one of those funny things. You kind of like look at films like that and you go, right, okay, I can kind of understand why they're offensive to people, but they're intrinsically what they are is so bad anyway. I mean, it's very hard to take SS Experiment Camp seriously in the slightest. It's been a while since I watched The Beast in Heat and SS Experiment Camp. Funny enough, it's not my go-to. I think any interest in those films tends to be kind of reserved to the fact that they were on the Video Nasties list. And that people really did take so much offence to them. But it was kind of the point. They were designed to be as offensive as possible, because that's why a lot of them are just pure trash. It's just because their only value is shock value, at least kind of like trying to shock. Do you think? Do you guys think we're supposed to find a warden in Beast in Heat attractive in a sadomasochistic way, like a weird fantasy? I think that's possibly part of it. It is fetishized. A lot of the SS sort of stuff, the Nazi exploitation stuff, is kind of fetishized stuff. It's as true of that as it is of Mad Foxes. Kind of most of them do have that kind of kinky sort of aspect to it. The Last Orgy of the Gestapo's Last Orgy is another one which it's semi-serious. It's weird in some respects. There's aspects of that film which are very, very serious and incredibly dramatic. But there's also aspects of it which are kind of kinky. I guess that's true of a lot of the stuff, whether it's the Night Porter or other films like that as well. I mean, it's arguable that certain aspects of Salò are a form of kink. I mean, Desard is a very sexually charged kind of storytelling. It's not going to be for everyone, of course, but and if you find it a very particularly sexy film, you've probably got some issues. But it's sexy not necessarily in that kind of way that's designed to be titillating, but as much as it is provocative. It took me an embarrassingly long time to realise these two guys are played by the same actor. Yes, I only kind of read about it. It must provide some interesting challenges for filmmaking. Mad Fox, this is the best Nazi exploitation movie ever made. Fight me. I've explained this to everyone before, but yeah, it's one of those movies that is, for me, pure guilty pleasure. I think it's a terrible movie on so many levels, and every character in that film is utterly despicable, even the good guy. But it's a lot of fun as well. I'd like to see a really good release of that. That'd be kind of fun. Mark Damon was also the real screenwriter for this, though he's credited to Walter Brandy and Batzella Solway. Okay. Transylvania. And you don't look at all like a vampire, sir. Nice one, Byron. That'd be an interesting game, wouldn't it? Be just rewriting video nasties based on their title alone. Kieran's very knowledgeable about this movie, it seems. There is something about these. I mean, I know you don't like the director at all, Kieran, but it's kind of interesting, the whole sort of nature of the Italian exploitation in particular, but Euro exploitation in general. That there are these kind of auteur type figures, be it Jess Franco, or be it Joe D'Amato, Batzella. You can kind of tell to some degree with that a film is a Batzella movie, or a Fulci movie, or an Argento movie. Cannibal Holocaust reappropriated as Nazi exploitation based on the title alone. Cannibal Holocaust is always one of those movies that you always have to sort of semi-apologise for thinking it's actually a damn good movie, which I do genuinely think is a genuinely fascinating movie, and it's all because of that animal cruelty in particular, but the other stuff which is kind of attached to it. So you got films like that, you've got films like I Spit on Your Grave, Last House on the Left, that you almost have to apologise for thinking are actually good movies. Salò is one of those movies that I've had threats of violence over because of my opinions of the film and stuff like that. Although the weirdest, the most uncomfortable film I've ever reviewed it has to be 2001, because it's just for all the nasty people who sort of go, I would kill you if like the pig in this movie kind of thing, which is a genuine comment that I had on my Cannibal Holocaust review. The most weird and unsettling stuff comes from films like 2001, particularly Kubrick films in general. Which is why I wouldn't review another Kubrick film. And it's a shame, really, because there's interesting things to explore in that. As much as I dislike Batzella, I'm strangely attracted to his movies. I bought Nude for Satan recently and still need to watch it. It's funny, isn't it? I could say the same thing about Jess Franco when I first started watching. If you watch the Nasties review episodes that are based on that they're done on his films, I spend a lot of time really kind of tearing into them. And the more I watched, the more I kind of got to respect stuff that was going on in those films. You could see a common thread, the auteur that the guy actually genuinely is in some of the films. That even some of the bad films, you can see, you know, his directorial sort of stamp upon. And I just got round to watching Shining Sex, the Jess Franco film. I'm going to show it on the next stream anyway, but Shining Sex on Blu-ray. Interesting film. It starts off as a bog standard Eurocine era Jess Franco, and then really kind of transforms. Although if you do a drinking game in it, just don't base it on every time you see a very extreme close up of Lena Romay's pussy, because you're going to be rat-arsed by the end of it. Rob Ager must get a hard time. Yes, I imagine he does. Some of it, you know, kind of... no, you know what, I'm not going to say some of it deserved, because nobody deserves that for their opinion on a film. But it's... Yeah, when you're into that, and it's a shame that it's got to that sort of position where if you want to contribute to kind of discussion of someone like Kubrick, that that you have to sit through the crazies. That's this version, yeah. That's this version. It's interesting. There's a lot of Jess Franco stuff has been re-released, stuff which has never been available before. This version has like the fullest version available, as far as I understand. It's long, it's really friggin' slow as well, but there's some interesting stuff going on within it. It goes from being, like, say, a typical Eurocine exploitation film into being something much more aligned with Jess Franco's kind of sensibilities. And there's quite an interesting sort of dark and twisted sort of story which runs through it. It's not one I would recommend to non-Jess Franco fans as an introduction, put it that way, but that would be like, you know, probably about 10 films in. Yeah, you're quite right, Kieran. The thing is, I would love the Severin version of that, because that's very bare bones, it has to be said. There's not anything really in the way of extras and stuff, but Severin's version has some really interesting extras, so I might look out for that, because I think that is worth it for that film. Magic amulet. Classy. Yeah. Classy, yeah. I'm not a virgin, baby. I'm experienced. Let me help you out with yours. Yes, I saw that, Kieran. I was actually kind of interested in getting hold of that. It's one of the things that people don't tend to think about when it comes to Jess Franco is he really did kind of a hell of a lot of genres. People think of him for like kind of one thing or the other. Generally, the horror films and the pornography, which that kind of comes close to falling into the pornography, but it does have hardcore kind of scenes in it, but it's not what I would call pornography, more erotica. And I know that always sounds like a bit of a flouncy kind of way of getting around what it is, but it's the more you see of this kind of stuff, the more you kind of appreciate the difference. Sex in that story is very much a integral part of what's being told, the story that's being told, and it is a weird story. It's described as science fiction. I kind of think that's pushing the description a bit, but it's got aliens who basically subvert Lena Remey's character and kind of start changing her, and she starts oozing this sort of glistening kind of substance onto her skin. As she goes through the film, she becomes more sort of shiny, and she seduces people into their towards their deaths, essentially. Franco's interest in sex is actually kind of a fascinating thing, although it's very easy to look at it on the more frivolous kind of aspects of it, and some of it does come across as being that, and some of it actually is. He's very playful with the subject, but he has some interesting kind of ideas, which, you know, when you watch multiple films, you start seeing common themes within the subject matter, which come through. Matt Damon is turning into a real Hal there, yes. She becomes shiny. She does. Lena Remey's one of those actresses who I find quite captivating. Not least because, when you look at the career that they had together, that Jess Franco never lost interest in her as an object of desire, right from her very youthful days through to as she aged later on in her career. Jess Franco always shot her the same way, and kind of like had that fixation with her. He was utterly fascinated by her. And if Soledad Miranda hadn't died so early, he probably would have done the same for her as well. Oh, okay, interesting. Esmeralda Barros, Brazilian actress. She was in previous Batzella Western. Tell you what, mate, you're going to have to send me a list of films that you recommend. I find your relationship with him as a director is actually quite fascinating, because yeah, I'd be interested to at some point talk to you about that. Maybe I should have to bring you on the stream or something one time, and give me a primer of what films you want to discuss. Who's a bigger pervert, Jess Franco or James Franco? See, Jess Franco I don't think was a pervert. He's just a very sexual guy. And I think when you see how he shoots women, you get a lot of that Eurocine sort of stuff, which is very... I don't want to say crude, but very kind of like straightforward. But even in something like Bloody Moon, there's that shot where she's stood against it with the moon's in the background, and this is in the midst of this very silly film. you get these things where Franco is shooting her naked or topless or whatever, and they're stunning shots. They're beautiful. Eurocine is a weird one for me because there's the early Eurocine with Jess Franco, for instance, is actually kind of interesting. The later it goes, the more frivolous it tended to get. But they generally were kind of afforded decent cameras and decent crew. So you can't really fault them necessarily for the for how they look or anything. And this film, I'm kind of after my only experience of Batzella's stuff really is I might have seen one other one, but I can't think what it would be. My experience of his stuff is obviously mostly The Beast in Heat. This film shows that the guy at least had some talent. And yeah, you got Joe D'Amato, kind of like apparently the cinematographer for this, and was able to direct a scene or two. Yeah, I think Batzella's certainly someone I would have to explore a little bit more. I mean, this really does have that kind of like Hammer horror kind of vibe to it. I don't think Soledad Miranda would have done real sex, if I'm honest. She was a gorgeous actress. No, she might not necessarily have done real sex, but I think that was kind of incidental because Lena Remey was very much a exhibitionist anyway, and Franco wasn't afraid of including real sex and sexual action within the movie. So they just kind of aligned in that sort of respect. But I don't think Jess Franco would have necessarily even felt the need to do that with Soledad Miranda. But he was obviously smitten with her. Collector Adam says, awesome locations and backdrops in this film already. Yeah, I mean, the lighting's nice. The cinematography's quite nice. It's very nice, in fact. Hello, Richard. Yes, the link's down below. It looks like a Facebook link, but it will take you to the film. Currently, we are at 22 minutes and just coming up to 40 seconds. that that would explain a lot, Kieran. Yeah, I mean, you want a schizophrenic example of his stuff. You're obviously using a very grotesque kind of definition of it, but in the pop version of schizophrenic, the Beast in Heat would definitely be that. By the way, there's a few Franco films on this channel. Night of the Assassins. Yeah. I do have that. It's quite a hard film to sit through. It took me about 4 or 5 viewings of that to do the review for it. My God, there's women everywhere. I hope you're well, Richard, by the way. Oh, a Dracula film. Yes. Yes, Luigi Batzella, Kieran's suggestion tonight. Neri was another hottie from the era. There's plenty of them in the Italian films. The one that does make me laugh, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, is... where's the film? God, bloody name of the film's gone out there. I want to say Cannibals. Jess Franco's Cannibals. And Ursula something. It's gone out of my head. But yeah, Franco was like kind of like, she's obviously a very beautiful woman, but she's awful actress. Yeah, heat wave going on here. Every day is 35 degrees. Yeah, it's warm here today. It's 26 in here at the moment, so it's a lot more tolerable than what you're going through, but yeah. Yeah, you'd be fine, Kieran. Your voice is not that bad. It's not bad at all. That's the one. Yeah, I think that's right. I think you're right there, Kieran. Ursula Buchfeldner. And she's doing all that kind of like, oh, in front of the reporters and that kind of stuff. It's like, even that looks utterly insincere. Jess Franco's like kind of like normally very kind of like kind to the actors in his films, but I've never heard him say anything nice about her. The woman from Twin Peaks. Oh, Julie Cruz, the singer. Yeah, she died yesterday, apparently, which is a real shame. Wasn't that old either. She's like 65. She does vampire well, doesn't she? Ladies of the night, what music they play. I'm getting beer. Oh, jealousy. Is she the vampire? She's certainly giving off those vibes. I haven't seen this film, so any excuse for that cleavage being shot, yes. It's kind of interesting when it comes to all this sort of stuff now, because I mean, obviously back in the day they were very kind of British censors would have been a lot more prudish about any kind of sex and stuff in the movies, and that's one of the reasons why Jess Franco had so many problems, is because he was involved in incredibly adult films. And back in the day, obviously anything that had kind of real sex or kind of like the kind of attentions that Franco would have to female genitalia and that kind of stuff was absolutely not allowed. And now you see a film like this is able to come out as an 18, where back in the day it would have struggled even to get an R rating, or R18, I should say. They're certainly getting their money's worth out of that horse shit. There's people riding to the rescue. Dimbar this time. So this is kind of one of the more interesting sort of things, isn't it? The cinematography in this, and yeah, I'm just checking out. Kieran said it's like he was the cinematographer on that. I'm just trying to just confirm that on there, but yeah, it is. Yeah. I wonder why he took a pseudonym on that. Interesting. But yeah, all the things that get said about kind of like, the likes of Joe D'Amato, because based on the films that he's infamous for, and you can see that he's actually an incredibly talented guy when it comes to this stuff. And it is one of the weird things when it comes to the whole exploitation, Euro exploitation scene, is there was a lot of people who were working and are incredibly talented people. Many of them worked alongside the greats. They kind of learned their trade under the greats, including Jess Franco and Joe D'Amato and various others. They worked with some of the, shall we say, respectable big names, and they had to adapt to changing circumstances. Jess Franco basically got blacklisted for a couple of reasons, particularly in Britain, but there was people who just wouldn't touch him for whatever reason, and his work was controversial not just in the UK but obviously in Europe in general. For all the movies of this kind of nature that come out of Italy, it's amazing how prudish they could be on certain things. I think one of the good examples was the director of The Cannibal Man. He had to really kind of work his way around the issues that go on within that movie by kind of cloaking it and encoding a lot of stuff. And some stuff was more obvious than others. But the government that he was under really kind of would give him a hard time. And Jess Franco had basically kind of split for the rest of Europe to be able to kind of escape that kind of stuff. It couldn't really work in Spain. Is this where they got the pictures for Joy of Sex from? Interesting thing about that, though, because the Joy of Sex, right, the book, right, in the 80s, I guess late 80s, just coming into the 90s, James Furman was known for being very liberal when it came to sex on screen and stuff like that, sexual material. He just didn't like the exploitation end of things. So a bunch of these producers were like, kind of like, no, it's a documentary on how to do it better. So they put the doctor in the white coat kind of stuff in the film, so they could basically sell what they intended to be pornography under the guise of being sex education. I mean, I think, sex in movies and stuff like that really is it's a perfectly healthy thing, generally speaking. Sometimes the restrictions that sort of happen regarding kind of that kind of content, it forces occasionally the directors to be a bit more smart about things, how they're presenting that kind of stuff, and sometimes that works for the benefit. There's interesting things that happen when you have to work your way around a problem. Besides the nasties, D'Amato's biggest controversy was probably Emmanuel in America. That's the infamous final act and a very objectionable scene towards the start. Yes. What's interesting is, though, sometimes that sort of stuff gets included because it's been sort of spliced in by producers and distributors. I don't know in that case if that was the case with that particular one. It's trippy, isn't it? It's interesting because it goes into that sort of, it's going into that sort of hallucinatory kind of thing. Have you heard of the film that's getting banned in England cinemas now? Oh, I have heard about that. I don't know anything about that film though. Although apparently it's not being banned. Let's be clear about that. It's being basically, there's a cinema chain has apparently decided not to screen it. It's not been banned, but it's been done on the grounds of it's been accused of blasphemy, and we got rid of our blasphemy laws, thankfully. Some of the most ridiculous laws that have ever been on the books. Yeah, I think it's a sign, as much as anything, of the corporate nature of big cinema chains. I do remember the although it obviously, if that's the case with that, because Emmanuel in America is a film that I have been meaning to watch for a few years, actually. There's some interesting aspects of it I want to kind of explore. But the film La Bête is another film that really kind of went down that sort of line. to an extent, it didn't have anything real, but I'm not sure that's the case, Byron, but I think there's a certain amount of growing up that's got to happen amongst some communities when it comes to that kind of stuff. If you're going to live in a Western country, then you need to kind of accept that other people have different points of view. I don't know the movie or specifically what it is about that movie which is causing the offence, and I would have to look into it to be properly informed about it. But saying something's blasphemous, for my money, is not even close to enough to to demand that kind of action. I don't know, Pete. Is there a short answer? And the long answer? Did a footballer's wag tug off a pig on Channel? I think that might actually be... That sounds disturbingly familiar. I don't think that really counts as anything kind of necessarily sexual, but unless you're a pig. Yes, you did, Karen. Channel 5 was a weird channel. It really was. But Channel 4 was when it first started. I do remember when Channel 4 started airing, and the kind of content that they would put on there. It was always the Red Triangle content. But it was attempting to be a more kind of adult-orientated channel. Do you remember Cameron's Piggate, though? Yes. Never forget. Ugh. Red candles, that's got to mean something. Channel 4 went quite far in the early years. Some great films on there. Yeah. There was a lot of outrage around Channel 4 back in the day when it first started. Oh, don't get me wrong, not everything that was on Channel 4 was great. A lot of it was some real kind of low-level trash, but it was an interesting channel. I didn't appreciate it quite as much back in the day, but BBC Two is historically been quite an interesting channel as well. Not so much BBC One because that's the main channel, but BBC Two got quite adventurous on occasions. Channel 4 did the Forbidden. No, was it BBC Two did the Forbidden, and Channel 4 did like a censorship season. And had some very interesting content on there. And I think, if I remember right, I've got somewhere on my somewhere on one of my hard drives, I've got horror films that they did in 3D for that season. But I've got to get some of the blue and amber glasses to be able to watch it. Remember that weird Indian game on Channel 4 on Sunday morning? I don't think I ever saw that. Oh, Kabaddi. Yes, they started televising that, which is adventurous. I'll say that much. I don't think there was an awful lot of interest in it. I think it did for a little while, but then it kind of went away. What channel was Videodrome? I believe that was BBC Two. Remember Mystery Train as well. That was Channel 4, if I remember right. See, that was back in the day when the BBC really kind of focused an awful lot on kind of providing a wide range of different types of entertainment. And Late Night on BBC Two was actually really good. I do like the lighting in this, I have to say. I bang on about lighting and stuff. I do have that, obviously, that interest. That's where my name comes from, so. TV is worse than crap these days. It ain't great, is it? Audiences have been dumbed down. I've said this about movies and TV. When you constantly only expose the populace to low-grade bullshit just because it's popular, then you can't expect them to grow as viewers. And that sounds kind of condescending. And people watch stuff for all sorts of reasons, and God knows a lot of the movies that I've got up here, people would look at and go, that's some low-grade shit. But I don't. It sounds very kind of like me kind of bigging myself up. I'm a lot more sophisticated a viewer than, as are most of you guys, if not all of you guys, a lot more sophisticated viewers than many of the people who just consume the commercial stuff. I mean, you watch a film like this, for instance, and a lot of people kind of immediately sort of go, I'm not watching that, it's just some bullshit, there's nothing valuable in this. You go, really? There's some great storytelling going on in this film. It's a beautiful cinematography. I mean, kudos to Joe D'Amato. First Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the night Channel 4 showed it days after it was taken off the banned list. Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, obviously I've got the... This is how I saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre for the first time, was on this, and this rough VHS copy. But when I watched it, I was kind of like, is there something missing in this? Because it's built up in your mind. Certainly, that's one of the side effects of any kind of banning. Is it builds the reputation of a film. There's reasons why films like, La Bête is a particularly controversial one, and Salò, that films that have had long histories of real draconian censorship, and those films persist because of that. I think Salò probably would have persisted even if it was a much milder film, mostly because it's Pasolini that directed it. But the savageness of that film is legendary. And sophistication as well, and that's the thing. It's the weird thing with it. It's a clearly artistically driven film, but with some of the most outrageous kind of ideas in it. But Desade's always been kind of like a particularly tricky subject matter to approach, but it has always been one of those very alluring ones as well. Franco, returning to Franco, he's always been fascinated by the whole thing about Desade. Salò's going to be shown on a big screen in an independent cinema in my city. I saw Pasolini's Acatone recently. I might give it a try. Oh no, good, go for it. That might tempt me back into a cinema to watch Salò. It'd be interesting to get the big screen experience of that film, and to see what the audience makes of it. I've seen it enough that I know the film backwards and forwards. So the idea of going to see it at the cinema would be quite interesting, but I would be as much watching the audience as anything. Oh, really? Okay. Thank you, Kieran. I totally understand why you wouldn't want to watch it again, Richard. I mean, it is a movie I had to work really kind of hard to not only really find the things that are special about the movie, but really to get to grips with it, but also to get past the intensity of what's going on. I am wondering where they shot this. I don't know if you know, Kieran. You got some interest. I'm assuming it's location. That was one of the hardest reviews I ever did, or at least analysis, I should say, rather than review. Was Salò. That was hard work. I enjoyed the process though, despite having had to watch the film about 8 times to actually do that. Yeah. Okay, Buster Blood Vessel. Yes. He did kind of look a bit like that, didn't he? Vampiric Buster blah, Buster blah 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 blah. Buster Blood Vessel. Don't be the vampire. Better get out that Lynx garlic. Don't keep forgetting to watch the film. It's alright, it's a nice casual kind of viewing. We get to enjoy films in a way that you can't really politely do it in a cinema here, so. I have to say I'm quite impressed with this film so far. Oh, don't apologise for that. I mean, no, thank you, Kieran. I mean, this film, in some respects, kind of reminds me of the sort of Harry Alan Towers kind of films, in terms of the qualities. You know, real kind of serious filmmaking aspiration within the film. It moves at an elderly pace. We're pretty chilled here. There's only a few viewers along. some people go, oh, you know, if you've only got a few viewers, where is it worth it? And you go, actually, we have a nice size audience. At least when there's a fewer people, then I don't get quite so much hassle for missing a comment or two. Look. 26 degrees. I'm also at the point I'd stop turning the air conditioning on, but that would just be absolutely vile for everybody listening. Yes, Richard. Night of the Living Dead Nasses. A bit of a siren call going on here, isn't there? She's a real chick magnet, this girl. Subjects of Vampire, Salem Slot is being remade. Original film wasn't great, but good performance by James Mason and David Soul. Book is still one of one of Stephen King's best in my view. It's been a long time since I've seen Salem Slot, so I can't really sort of speak to its qualities either way, but haven't they already remade it once? Again, I don't know. D'Amato also made a zombie film with porn, Exotic Nights of the Living Dead. There was Porno Holocaust, which is the cannibal one. Zombie one. Was it zombie? It was zombie one. And yes, Erotic Nights of the Living Dead. So it was two. Made back to back. Same location, same crew. Pretty much same cast. Zombie Holocaust is one of those that I did actually review. I found it quite an entertaining film in a lot of respects. We've got George Eastman in it, but I don't think he gets any action in it. But it's infamous because one of the characters had rather noticeable genital warts. It's all in close up. It's a bit icky. Like an 80s Onyx ring. Total fanny magnet, yes. What is the plot of Porno Holocaust? Oh god, it's been about 6 years or so since I watched it, but basically it's kind of crikey. You know what? Let's pull up a synopsis from something else, because I wouldn't want to misrepresent it. I seem to remember it kind of being vaguely sort of zombie, but with kind of sex. A group of scientists is taken to a secluded island where nuclear weapon testing occurred in 1958 in order to investigate the sightings of mutated animals and allegations of a monster. On the island, overgrown crabs are discovered, and the researchers and their ship's crew are stalked and spied on by an unseen being. And there's lots of fucking and kind of investigation. That gives you a rough idea. Oh, it has that really funky, upbeat kind of oddly jaunty track. I found it quite entertaining. It is not what I would call an awful film. In terms of, you can sit down and it's funny. It's not particularly sexy. It's too ridiculous for that. Probably too much information there, Pete. There you go. See, I don't have a problem with the fact that, these films have rough edges, Kieran. I suspect you don't really either. But it is one of those things, I'm way more forgiving of it in a film like this, because I understand, that they're not the biggest budgeted films. And to be honest, I find a certain amount of charm in it. You could easily rewrite David Cronenberg's Shivers into a porno. Well, I mean, it is a very, very, very heavily sexual film anyway. As is, Rabid and that film in particular. Cronenberg's release kind of musing on sex is it's already there. It doesn't need to be hardcore. The film wouldn't benefit from it. Sometimes a film does kind of benefit from real sex within the scenes. Just not always. I think you have to have a reason. It's good to have a reason to have it in there rather than just doing it as an exploitative thing. And it's not me being prudish. It's just having purpose to anything that you put in a film is always a good thing. Never liked Shivers, if I'm honest. Hardly had any proper plot. Some of the dumbest characters ever. Oh wait, no, it has a plot. I would have to disagree with you. There's definitely a plot there. Sometimes Cronenberg stuff does come over as being more concept and story. Which maybe that's what you're feeling, maybe not. I don't want to speak for you in that or presume to impose that upon you, but sometimes Cronenberg stuff is a very different kind of storytelling. It's particularly his early stuff, different type of storytelling. It's not dialogue based as much. Winnie the Pooh porn is near at hand. It won't fly in China. What's interesting with something like Shivers is to try to put it in context of, the time that was actually made. Now, I can't really sort of go into detail about that kind of stuff, but because I haven't really sort of spent much time doing that. But I suspect you'll find. When was Shivers made? It was 70s, wasn't it? Let's have a quick look. $1975. So you're basically talking kind of right in that golden age of horror. Texas Chainsaw Massacres, Night of the Living Dead, all that kind of stuff. That shift into a very pessimistic America. Obviously it's a Canadian film, but you've still got some of the same concerns going on. So when it kind of looks at those kind of things, you go, right, it's 1975. It's gone from the kind of like the 60s, the free love sort of stuff, into the 70s, which is a very much more cynical and reactionary time to it. Because it's like things turned on a goddamn dime from the 60s to the 70s, including sexual politics. See, I would disagree a little bit, Byron, although I do understand where you're coming from. For me, Cronenberg's early stuff is it's kind of an evolution. I wouldn't say he was just good. I'd say he was amazing what he was doing. But it's a very alienating form of storytelling, and I think he got better when it got to Videodrome. I think you're quite right there. But Shivers and Rabid in particular are incredible stories. Although Crimes of the Future, the original, is one of those that really does it has the power to push buttons with the revelation at the end. And you could say that's a very primitive version of time of Cronenberg, but it was a sign of things to come with his work. One of the favourites of his, the one that everybody kind of like tends to kind of think of as the one of the better Cronenberg ones, which Scanners, I don't think is a particularly good film in some respects. I don't get me wrong, I can enjoy it. It has some wonderful imagery. But it is a film that clearly kind of got very, very, very heavily rushed and compromised in its production. So if there's one Cronenberg film I would like to see remade, it would be Scanners, and I would like to see Cronenberg or his son redo that. Because I think he'd have some interesting stuff to say with it. Yes, Richard, that's the Tupperware parties have indeed got way out of hand. So am I, Byron. I'm looking forward to the new one. The old one is very controversial. That is entirely correct. The conclusions it comes to, the moral conundrum it faces you with, is rightfully difficult. And it isn't gratuitous either. Just hold on there, bad guy, while I take this candelabra and throw it on the bed. That's probably a slight misframing of what is actually going on within that, Byron. Essentially, for those who don't know, the original Crimes of the Future, the world has basically faced a reproductive crisis that women very, very quickly after puberty become barren. They become unable to bear children. So there's a very short window between puberty and when they lose the ability to reproduce that they can be productive in that sense. And it's like one of those very, very difficult questions. It's like if you follow the morality of normal society, then the human race is doomed. It's an incredibly uncomfortable scenario that he faces you with. I like Bressy. But yeah, Byron, that isn't the point. What you've suggested there, it's just kind of like part of the circumstance. And you sort of have to ask, is it abuse or is it survival? Are those two things at odds with each other? I would agree that they are hard to watch. Stereo and Crimes of the Future are, by Cronenberg standards, even by Cronenberg standards, very slow and mundane feeling. They're not easy films to sit through. They are literally the kind of films that you sort of go, it's got more academic value than it has entertainment value. I don't think it was supposed to be entertainment. Ah, nice one, Kieran. Nice spotted. Excuse me. That's the point, Byron. They couldn't. The whole plot of that story is basically that women have a very, very, very narrow window in which they can actually reproduce. That's the point of the story. It's a challenge of morality. It's questioning morality. The moral thing would be to do exactly what you say, but then then basically humanity is doomed. I'm not saying it's a nice thing to consider. It's okay. I mean, I'm not having a go at you, Byron. I promise you. Yeah, and it's totally understandable why it would be a very visceral reaction that anyone would have. I had that when I first watched it. It's a very difficult film, incredibly controversial. Most people don't know about it. It's not endorsing any of it. That's the thing. But Cronenberg is very big on kind of challenging your sensibilities. It's one of the things which makes his films quite powerful. Well, that's the thing, though, isn't it, Kieran? It's one of those things that you, the situation that he sets up within that movie is designed to make you question various things. He does seem to have odd beliefs about a lot of things, though. I think he expresses them in a very heightened kind of way. And he likes to ask difficult questions. And that's what I like about him. That's why I like films like Crash. Why I like films like Videodrome. Videodrome is one of those movies that you expected to get behind the extreme pornographer. That's your hero. Max Wren is not a what society would consider to be a moral character. He is a distributor of pornography, of some of the worst pornography you can get his hands on, and deliberately so. But the people who he's the antagonists of this thing, and that includes Brian O'Blivion and Barry Convex. Those two people particularly are very extreme political poles. Who, sorry to say there's a stabbing. Yeah, these two characters that are extreme political kind of light poles that present these very interesting kind of challenges to someone like Max Wren, who would in most films be the bad guy. You know what? I can't really think of what would be the most, what would be described as a Cronenberg mainstream film. Probably, yeah, probably Scanners is about the most mainstream that he's done in terms of story. Actually, I would say he was the victim. That's the weird thing with it. He's very much the victim in that. It's a fascinating film, Videodrome. Probably, in my opinion, one of Cronenberg's best crafted. You think Videodrome are the heroes of the film? Well, Videodrome is it's not a person; it's a kind of force. It is pure. It's kind of pure hatred in media form. It is malevolent. Whatever it is, it's malevolent. So I don't know if you're talking about Barry Convex, not Barry Convex, excuse me, Brian Oblivion. But the thing is, with Brian Oblivion, there are faults to that character. He's just as much an extremist as anyone. And that's the thing, you know, you've got this guy who wouldn't, in normal circumstances, be considered to be an extremist, Max Wren, and he's confronted with these two other characters who turn out to be far more extremist. There's some interesting things going on, though. You've got like Barry Convex and stuff like that. There's lots of references to like the Medici family, the spectacles that he is hawking are kind of like the Medici line. Now, if you know a little bit about the history, it's like Medici were a very, very rich and powerful dynasty in Europe. They supplied a couple of popes and all this kind of stuff. So they represent really kind of like authority figures within society. And then you've got the Brian Oblivion, who are kind of like the more sort of anarchist, if you like, certainly a kind of religious sort of authority on another side. So they're kind of at odds with each other, but they seem to be from different political kind of ends. But the thing is, they're both trying to do the same thing. They're both trying to take control. You never really get to know who who made Videodrome. It's used as a tool. That's the thing. It's almost a MacGuffin. This violent pornography is weaponized. And Max Wren, a guy that you'd think would be resistant to it, falls to it. It's a fascinating film. I love it. You could talk for hours about that damn film. Oh, watch out. He's interpretive dancing his way off of the castle. So what Wren is controlled, he becomes an unwitting hero. I just said I don't think he becomes a hero. He becomes the victim because he's taken over by it all. If you know what I mean. I mean, it kind of depends on who you sort of follow as within the antagonist, whether it be Brian Oblivion is a good guy or if he's not. And the thing is, with a lot of Cronenberg stuff, these things aren't that clear. At least I don't think it is. I haven't seen Videodrome in a while, so what is a degenerate in the movies world? To some in the real world, a degenerate would be example of gay. I think Max Wren is initially, at the very least, kind of portrayed as being that. The company that he runs, the things that his company show, his drive to try and find the most extreme product for his viewers. And it's all kind of outshone by these two much more generally respectable people in society. So there's a question to some degree about class within the film. Sort of looking at this person who does this, what a lot of people would describe as a degenerate kind of job, I guess. Facing basically being manipulated by these two figures in society that would be otherwise considered respectable. Media moguls, essentially. Both of them. Oh no. Well, that was careless of him, wasn't it? Cronenberg said he's on the side of the parasites and Shivers or so on. I think that's as much as anything Cronenberg being a little bit playful when he says something like that. But he definitely kind of looks in terms of certainly in Shivers, the parasites are kind of, the film is their story as much as it is anybody else's. But he, certainly with those earlier films, he kind of characterized things like the disease as a character. He imbued those things with a sense of humanity to some degree, or at least of agency. Well, that was quite good there, Kieran. I quite enjoyed that. I'm going to have to watch it again when I'm not rabbiting on about other stuff as well, but thank you for that. Twist ending, definitely didn't see that coming. But yeah. I don't think it literally wants parasites burrowing into people, of course, but I think it's more about sexual liberation. Yes, that is a part of it, but it's like that and Rabid and, even like The Fly and things like that. There's a lot of kind of sex can be part of the character of the film, certainly with the Shivers and Rabid particularly. It's like you're following the story of the disease as much as you are, in fact, more than you are individual characters within the film. Films like Crash as well, there's aspects of the story, things that it's looking at which are more important than necessarily the characters themselves. So, yeah. Cronenberg's interesting because he takes the perspective, the kind of perspective that most filmmakers wouldn't take. I find that endlessly fascinating. But yeah. even in terms of sexual liberation, there's too much. Yeah, there is. I mean, you can look at something like Shivers, for instance, and that utter kind of like submission through the parasites to sexual behaviour is kind of like it's not necessarily shown as a good thing at the end. You know, it has sort of taken over, but you got the other side of it as well, which is the kind of repression that people try to kind of like enact, which is at the beginning with the doctor and the young girl. It's not as young as she appears in the thing, but there is a suggestion that there was a longer standing relationship between those two. But that doctor is basically he's representative of something, which I will leave you to kind of figure out for yourselves. Cronenberg should remake the stuff with premium. Yeah. Yes. Cronenberg's the beer is not that great. It's alright. It's drinkable at a push. Oh dear. Anyway, I think we should call it a day there because I've got to get the door open. It is fucking hot as hell in here. That was interesting. Thank you very much, Kieran. And like I said, we'll go through next Friday. Should be next Friday. It'll either be Friday or Saturday. I think it'll be Friday. I will gather up all my Jess Franco films and we'll go through the collection and talk about ones that I don't have on DVD but I have in other forms. I think that's going to be kind of fun. It could be kind of interesting. Yeah. So, yeah, we'll call it a night there. So thank you very much. I will see you next week. And take care of yourself. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.